Hello, and welcome to Reflected in Revelation, the YouTube channel that loves to reflect on things. It could be reflecting on the news, reflecting on society, or reflecting on why anyone thought a YouTube channel called Reflected was a good idea in the first place. But today, we're focusing on Europe, specifically 15 European nations facing some pretty significant challenges in 2024 to 2025. And no, before you ask, this isn't about which country has the worst Eurovision entry. Though, let's be honest, it's always either Germany or the UK, isn't it? Look, Europe, it's a continent with a lot going for it: history, culture, some truly excellent pastries. Ukraine, a nation known for its beautiful sunflower fields, its vibrant culture, and well, being the backdrop for a proxy war between global superpowers. It's like finding out your charming Airbnb host is also an international arms dealer. A bit jarring, to say the least. The ongoing conflict, which we're contractually obligated to remind you is very unfortunate, has unsurprisingly taken a sledgehammer to Ukraine's economy. We're talking about infrastructure that looks like it lost a fight with a particularly angry bulldozer, and an economy that's doing a better impression of a roller coaster than, well, an actual roller coaster. Now you might be thinking, John, this is all very depressing. Can we talk about something more uplifting, like the intricacies of international finance or the mating habits of dung beetles? And to that, I say no, because we haven't even gotten to Greece yet. So with that cheery thought in mind, let's move on to a nation that knows a thing or two about economic woes. Greece, the land of ancient ruins, stunning beaches, and a debt crisis so persistent it makes Sisyphus look like an underachiever. Seriously? That guy had one job. Remember the Greek debt crisis? Of course you do. It was basically the financial equivalent of a very loud, very messy divorce that everyone was forced to watch. The short version is that Greece took on more debt than a teenager with their first credit card, and the only solution the EU could come up with was austerity measures. And by austerity measures, they mean making the average Greek citizen feel like they're living on a diet of stale bread and tap water. The result? Well, let's just say that the words economic stagnation don't quite capture the level of, oh dear God. What happened here? Imagine a once thriving economy being replaced with a tumbleweed rolling down an empty street. It's like that, but with more ouzo and slightly angrier goats. But hey, at least they have those beautiful beaches, right? Just try not to think about the potential environmental impact of all those tourists trying to forget their financial woes. On second thought, let's move on to Italy, shall we? Right, Italy, the land of pizza, pasta, and apparently perpetual economic stagnation. It's like trying to order a gelato and finding out the machine's been broken for a decade. And no, I'm not talking about their football team for once. Italy's economy has been stuck in low gear for years, plagued by low productivity, a bloated bureaucracy, and a debt to GDP ratio that would make a Venetian gondolier seasick. It's like they took all the ingredients for a booming economy, threw them in a pot, and somehow ended up with a lukewarm bowl of minestrone. And the political scene? Don't even get me started. It's more volatile than an active volcano, with governments collapsing faster than you can say bunga bunga. This instability makes it nearly impossible to implement any long-term economic reforms, which, let's be honest, they desperately need. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of wobbly pizza dough. You might get a few layers in, but eventually the whole thing is going to collapse into a cheesy, saucy mess. So, what does the future hold for Italy? Well, if they don't address their deep-seated economic issues, they risk becoming the Eurozone's problem child, forever teetering on the edge of crisis. And nobody wants that, especially not Italy. Because let's be honest, the world needs their pasta. Ah, Spain, home of sun-drenched beaches and delicious tapas, but also persistent economic woes. Spain's economy isn't exactly taking a siesta, but it's not dancing the flamenco either. High unemployment is a major issue, especially youth unemployment, which remains high. Imagine being young and ready to work, but only finding jobs like handing out flyers in a costume. It's enough to make you scream ole out of frustration. And then there's the Catalonia situation. The region wants out, but the government says no. This tension simmers like overcooked chorizo, adding to Spain's economic instability. Spain must address these challenges to regain its footing. Otherwise, only the tourist industry will boom. Now let's sail on over to Portugal, a country known for its stunning coastline and melancholic fado music. Sadly, it's also known for an economic hangover from the Eurozone crisis. The cure, a big bitter dose of austerity measures, cutting government spending, raising taxes, and tightening the belt. But in practice, it leads to slower growth and higher unemployment. Austerity fatigue has set in. Portugal needs a new way to boost its economy and improve lives. So, we've talked about Greece's debt crisis, but you know what's almost as fun as one country's financial woes? That's right, a country so small it makes Greece look like a goddamn continent. I'm talking, of course, about Cyprus. Remember that time in 2012 to 2013 when Cyprus decided to have its own little economic meltdown? Good times, good times. Essentially, their banking system went all Ocean's 11 on some bad investments and ended up needing a bailout. And by bailout, I mean they decided to just take money directly from people's bank accounts. Because what better way to inspire confidence in your financial system than by straight up robbing your citizens? It was the kind of move that makes you wonder if they got their economic advice from a bunch of toddlers playing Go Fish with Monopoly money. And while things have calmed down a bit since then, the instability lingers like the smell of halloumi left out in the sun too long. Next up, we're heading east to Bulgaria, a land known for its beautiful scenery, delicious yogurt, and rampant corruption. Yeah, turns out that beneath the surface of this Balkan nation lies a whole lot of shady dealings and economic stagnation. We're talking about a country where joining the EU was supposed to be the gateway to prosperity. Instead, it seems like they accidentally took a wrong turn and ended up at the organized crime and low wages pavilion. And the worst part is, it's not even like they're particularly good at the corruption bit. It's less Ocean's 11 and more Weekend at Bernie's 2, with a bunch of inept crooks stumbling around and somehow managing to make everything worse. So while the yogurt might be to die for, the economic and political landscape, let's just say you'd be better off sticking with a nice, safe bowl of cereal. Romania, the land of Dracula, stunning castles, and a government that seems hell-bent on sucking the life out of its own economy. That tracks, doesn't it? You see, Romania has been on a bit of a roller coaster ride since joining the EU. First came the economic boom, with growth so rapid it made your head spin. But then came the inevitable hangover, and let's just say it wasn't pretty. We're talking political instability, a slowdown in economic growth, and a level of corruption that would make even the most jaded cynic raise an eyebrow. It's enough to make you wonder if they accidentally swapped their economic playbook with a choose-your-own-adventure book that ends with everyone losing. And don't even get me started on the brain drain. It's gotten so bad that soon the only people left in Romania will be Dracula and a bunch of confused tourists trying to use their Lonely Planet guides from 2008. Right, let's talk about Hungary, shall we? Or as Viktor Orban likes to call it, my own personal fiefdom. Now, Orban, he's a piece of work, isn't he? He's like that kid in school who learned all the rules just to see how thoroughly he could break them. He's been busy turning Hungary into a kind of illiberal democracy testing ground. It's democracy, sure, but like a diet soda. It looks a bit like the real thing, but ultimately lacks all the things that make the real thing worthwhile. And the EU, well, they're not thrilled. They've been waving some pretty hefty rule of law flags in his face, threatening to withhold funds. But Orban, he's got that dog who caught the car look about him. He's cozying up to Russia and China, presumably hoping they'll throw him a bone or two. But here's the thing, playing both sides might seem clever in the short term, but in the long run, it's likely to leave Hungary in a more precarious position. Moving northwest, we arrive at Poland, a nation caught in a geopolitical tug of war. On one hand, they're staring down the barrel of a resurgent Russia, which, let's be honest, tends to put a damper on one's day. This has understandably pushed them closer to NATO and the West. On the other hand, their internal politics have taken a turn for the, shall we say, complicated. The ruling Law and Justice Party, or PIS, have been playing fast and loose with judicial independence and media freedom. This has led to some rather public spats with the EU, who, much like a disappointed parent, keep reminding Poland about the importance of democratic values, and all this while trying to manage an economy grappling with the fallout from the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. It's enough to make even the most seasoned politician reach for the vodka. And now we arrive at Bosnia and Herzegovina, a nation still haunted by the ghosts of a war that ended nearly 3 decades ago. It's a bit like that kitchen renovation. You started with such high hopes, but then realized halfway through you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. The Dayton Agreement, for all its good intentions, left the country in a rather awkward position, divided into two entities with a complex power sharing agreement that makes your average IKEA furniture assembly instructions look like child's play. This has led to, shall we say, a certain level of political stagnation. It's like trying to run a three-legged race with someone who's determined to hop backwards, and as if that wasn't enough, they've got ethnic tensions bubbling away like a forgotten pot on the stove. It's a situation that requires a delicate touch, a commitment to dialogue, and perhaps a whole lot of therapy. Kosovo declared independence in 2008. You'd think they'd be a beacon of economic prosperity. Instead, they're like that friend, always borrowing money. Being landlocked in the Balkans is tough. Attracting foreign investment is challenging. Kosovo's unemployment rate is staggering. It's a bleak picture. Economic instability spills into politics. Kosovo needs to break free from this cycle. North Macedonia recently changed its name to appease everyone. You'd think they'd be experiencing economic prosperity. Think again. They're stuck in a perpetual state of 5 more minutes. Stunning mountain ranges, beautiful lakes, and a history dating back to Alexander the Great. Attracting sustainable investment, that's a different story. It's a whole different kettle of burek. North Macedonia suffers from stuck in the middle syndrome. Not poor enough for generous aid, not prosperous enough for investors. It's like being the middle child of Europe, always overlooked, often forgotten. No one can articulate what trying harder entails. And there's Greece throwing a fit over the name Macedonia. This tension, coupled with these internal political squabbles, does little to instill confidence in investors. Maybe hitting the snooze button wasn't such a bad idea. At least they're well rested for the long road to economic recovery. Right? Albania, you know, the country that decided, for some reason, that the best way to defend themselves was to build hundreds of thousands of concrete bunkers across this beautiful landscape. I mean, talk about commitment issues. But it turns out those bunkers aren't the only concrete problem Albania's got. See, beneath those stunning mountain vistas and sparkling Adriatic coastline lies a country grappling with organized crime and economic underdevelopment. We're talking about a situation where joining the EU feels about as likely as finding a unicorn chilling in one of those bunkers. The economy is heavily reliant on agriculture and tourism, neither of which are exactly known for their recession-proof qualities. And when you factor in high levels of corruption, it paints a pretty bleak picture. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of jelly. You might start with good intentions, but it's all going to wobble precariously. And let's not forget about the brain drain. The best and brightest often feel they have no choice but to seek opportunities elsewhere. It's a vicious cycle. The young and educated leave, which further hampers economic development, which then encourages more people to leave. It's like a sad Balkan version of a going out of business sale, except the business is their future. Let's talk about Moldova, the Where's Waldo of Eastern Europe. Seriously, find it on a map. I'll wait. It's landlocked between Romania and Ukraine, like the filling in a sandwich. Moldova is one of the poorest countries in Europe, with a separatist region called Transnistria, a Soviet time capsule. It's heavily reliant on Russia for energy, making it incredibly vulnerable. The future? Tough to say. Moldova is running a marathon, uphill, in the rain, carrying a piano. Well, folks, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of Europe's underbelly, where economic hardship and social instability are weaving a complex and concerning tapestry. But here's the thing, despair is a luxury we can't afford. These are real people facing real challenges, and their struggles deserve our attention. We can support organizations working tirelessly on the ground to make a difference. Together we can strive for a more peaceful, harmonious world. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Subscribe, like, and share.